Hello, my name is Nate Johnson. This is for Dr. Holmes' class, law and communication. Sorry, y'all. So basically, for my case, I will be talking about, sorry, the University of California versus Bake in 1978. My Supreme Court justice was Powell, Lewis Powell. And I'm just going to give you a brief summary of the case and basically hit all the topics that you guys want. So, the case centered on Allan Bakke. He was a white applicant who was denied admission in the University for California medical school. Despite his qualifications, basically he was denied admission because of his race. So Bakke claimed that the program's use of racial quotas violated his rights under the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So basically, it's saying that these rigid quotas that were used in the UC Davis program were unconstitutional under the 14th Amendment. Now, for those who don't know what the 14th Amendment is, it's specifically the Equal Protection Clause, which guarantees that no state shall deny that affirmative action itself is permissible. So basically, it's just trying to say that it should be equal rights given for everyone, no matter race, no matter if you're trying to apply for a job, trying to apply for university. It should be equality within that, and should not have rigid quotas, especially in admissions for university. So that amendment applies to the 14th Amendment, like I said. So when we talk about the ethical and moral dilemmas of the case, there are some heavy hitters. We have equality versus equity, right? Should institutions prioritize treating all applicants the same, which would be equality, or provide advantages to historically marginalized groups, which would be equity? So, as a Black person myself, going into a hard program, I would like some type of assistance or some type of accommodation when I am applying for these jobs or applying for these situations and positions that I would like to be in. And knowing that this case took place in 1978, so this is coming right out of the civil rights movement. This is coming right out of heavy racism around these times. So there were a lot of Black people that needed education, and because of this, the institution had quotas they had to meet for it to be considered diverse. They had to accept a certain amount of Black people and a certain amount of white people just to keep the fluctuation of diversity in their institution, right? So, it's a battle of equality for everyone, because everyone should have an equal right, but also the power of equity. Us as Black people don't have a lot of things that are tangible to ourselves, especially knowledge. Knowledge is power. So, yeah. And then you have individual rights versus social justice. Does affirmative action unfairly disadvantage individuals like Bakke in favor of broader societal goals like diversity? So like I'm saying, individual rights versus social justice, his individual right would have been to apply and would have been to get in based on his merit, based on his work ethic, his grades, everything that goes into being accepted to a university. Versus social justice, there are a lot of Black people that probably had the same amount as he would have, but instead not getting accepted into the university just off the base of their skin color. So that was another moral and ethic dilemma. So when we talk about the Supreme Court justice, it actually was a split court. The decision was highly framed by Justice Lewis Powell. He played a pivotal role. In his opinion, basically he struck down the strict quotas, siding with Bakke. He thought that these quotas were very rigid. He thought they didn't really uphold the standards of the university, and he thought they should change. But also, it was weird because he affirmed that the race could still be a factor in admissions to achieve educational diversity. So even though he sided with Bakke, he also thought that race could still be a factor in admission. He also was on the side of the Black people. So that's when people say it's kind of a split decision, a split case. He agreed with Bakke on how he felt and on how he delivered his message and what he had written up and the character that he was, but also he understood the importance of having Black people in universities like this and how it could be monumental and impact us in the future. So for that, I really don't blame Justice Powell. I actually think that's a good good way of thinking, and I probably would have did the same way too. So when we talk about the impact of the case, the ruling set a precedent for affirmative action policies in higher education. This case was very, very pivotal because after this case, it showed how institutions, should move forward in the future, right? It clarified that while quotas were still unconstitutional, having a quota is unconstitutional. Saying that only 50 black people can be in here and 100, that's unconstitutional. Everybody should be able to be in one place at one time, no matter the race, right? Considering race in holistic admission process is lawful. So basically, considering race when you're trying to admit, it is lawful, but paving the way for sequential cases and affirmative action. So like I said, because of this, it's kind of a two-way street. It's an up and down. Yes, we want to accept black people, but we need to be able to accept others who should be in the same spaces. So those are the moral and ethical dilemmas. Now, when it comes down to my personal opinions, I mean, my most reasonable option that I would take into consideration is eliminating race-based considerations. Admission policies would be completely race neutral, emphasizing academic success, extracurricular activities, personal statements, systemic characteristics without considering race. Sorry, y'all, I'm tripping up my words. But what I'm trying to say is, I think that when you apply for any constitution or any institution, whatever you're trying to get into, they should look at your character, not only the race of your skin. They should look at the things that you're in. They should look at how you are as a person, your community, your grades, extracurricular activities. Like, being admitted into this university, would you help or would you hinder? And I feel like that should be very, very important, not outside of race, right? There were many, many unresolved conceptual issues as well regarding the case, such as the theory of diversity, right? And compelling interest. Did the court specifically define what is diversity and how would you measure it, right? How do you measure diversity? Saying, okay, there's 50,000 students, 20 of them are white, 20,000 of them are white, 20,000 of them are black. Like, you can't really measure diversity in its own sense, because again, you could be black, but you also could be mixed with white. Like, you know what I'm saying? So there are some different things that it's kind of hard to measure diversity, and the court didn't really go into depth about that. And without that clear definition, an institution can make questionable admission qualifications, right? If I don't know how to measure diversity, it's kind of hard to really put people in a box. It's kind of hard to measure that, especially if I'm in the admissions and I'm trying to see who's what and who's doing. I don't know how to measure how many people we have and their race and their ethnicity and their background. You know what I'm saying? It kind of causes questionable standards. And that can also lead to further legal action. I do think there were a lot more cases like this in the future. And I think that this case was really a stepping stone for those to happen. And I will say now, because of this case, universities and institutions have taken more care and more consideration about race and about these actual dilemmas when accepting their students into the university. So, brief summary of the University versus Bakke case, 1978. My name is Nate Johnson. Thank you for listening. I hope I hit everything. And yeah, see you guys later. Peace. Thank you, Dr. Holmes. Hey.